I don't want to miss this opportunity to record out here when no one's around. It's nice. So, Black Moonlight. It's the second single they released from the upcoming Dance Macabre album. This is more like it. And the first time I heard it, I wasn't sure exactly who was on it. I thought it was Nile. And when I heard the guitar parts, I'm like, wow, that sounds like Andy. It sounds like old school type guitar. Almost, to me, it sounds a bit like the sounds from Seven and the Ragged Tiger. And turns out it was Andy and Nile as well. They're both on it. I'm just not sure who's doing what, but I think that rhythm guitar, that dance, 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 that sounds like Andy. But yeah, this is much better than well, because just up due to the fact there's no rapping, so right away it's better. But yeah, it reminds me almost of something from Seven and the Ragged Tiger era. What is that song? 6 and Broadway, 7 Up. What is that? I can't think of that. Oh, My Own Way. It sounds kind of like that. The style of it sounds a bit like that. If you took away the sort of modern production kind of elements to it, which there aren't many, it sounds like old school Duran. And you know, Nile and Andy working on it. So there you go. Why don't we get them to work on some more stuff together? Because I love Future Past, but looking at their history and the way things tend to go with them, this next studio album, it could be great if they do it right. You know, they tend to like self-sabotage for whatever reason, or they always have, but I think things are different now. I think they've kind of moved up into like an upper echelon of bands. I don't think people are as I think people actually take them a bit more seriously than they used to. And for years no one took them seriously, and the reason is because they were just good looking. And if they looked like a bunch of weird art students or something, they would be a lot more critically acclaimed and loved, you know, because the music is, I mean, it's awesome, right? So it's accessible, but it's also really kind of out there for the most part. I mean, a lot of it. It's just the way they look. And I wonder if John ever regrets sending those pictures into, what was it, Jane magazine? I'm sure if you asked him in the 80s, like around that 3 to Get Ready time, if he regretted it, I bet he'd say yes, because I just remember that conversation in that movie. If you haven't seen it, 3 to Get Ready is a great movie. It's free on YouTube. It's like a documentary type style thing. It follows their making of the Notorious album. And now let me just move along here. We're getting a crowd. It follows the making of that album, and there's one point where they're in the back of a car that's driving them around somewhere, and John is complaining about the fact that no one takes him seriously, and how come you two can do this, and you know they can't do that. And it has to do with how they were marketed, and the reason they were marketed that way is because they had so much success marketing themselves that way from the very beginning. Like before they were even big, I think before maybe even right around the time the first album came out, John sent some like press kits or press shots or something to one of the teen magazines in the UK, and they picked up on it, you know, because they're like, wow, these guys are good looking, and then it just went from there. So that by the time they started showing up in, I guess, more legitimate magazines, as musicians would say, but I don't really believe that. I think whatever, you know, they're fans of all kinds. You know, just because someone is a teenage girl and they like the way they look, that doesn't mean they're not fans too. It's fucking retarded, but whatever. So so by the time they showed up in more quote unquote legitimate magazine sources, they had already been kind of in that teeny bopper universe, and you know, people looked at them, and then they looked at what they were doing with these like magazines and stuff, and like, oh, these guys are a joke, they're a kids band, or you know, they were like I can think of the first modern kind of boy band. You know, you had things like that before the Osmonds, like the Jackson 5, that were sort of geared toward teens, but Duran was like the first huge, like, of the modern boy bands. And I remember when they started on the decline at the end of the 80s, I can't wait for this light. It's going to be forever. Everybody else is going. So, like, yeah, there's a difference though between me going and everybody else going, but we're not going to get into that. When they started to hit their decline in the 80s, I remember picking up magazines around the time of Liberty. And they were asking them, like, what they thought about New Kids on the Block, as if they were their peers or something. And it's kind of weird. Like, can you imagine asking, you know, any other band about that? But they always were tied to that. I remember Simon's reply at the time was like, well, New Kids on the Block, what are they going to do in 5 years? He's always got something kind of funny to say. He's a fucking sharp guy. He's quick. He's probably the most clever out of all of them. Although the controller might be, but you wouldn't know it because he doesn't talk as much as Simon. He's a little bit more quiet. But yeah, this new song, Everything Comes Together, it's really great. Also a new song, Simon has a new solo song out for a movie. I think it's new anyway. It showed up in my my Spotify as a new release. It's for a movie with Jango Fett in it, Aquaman's dad, Boba Fett's dad, the Polynesian looking guy. Actually, a lot of people look like that here. They look like that guy every day. It's like, hey, it's just a certain look. It's that Polynesian look, you know. He has it's probably one of his movies. And it's a solo song from Simon. It sounds good. It's very adult contemporary, but it's a good song. And Simon, as always, sounds excellent. He's one of the most unique and fun to listen to singers. He's so underrated and underappreciated, and lyrically too. His lyrics are, sometimes he goes a bit too far, you know, like Pearls of Jism and stuff like that. But he's great. You know, he's not going to come up with something that's boring. He's used his words and phrases that you don't hear anywhere else. He's really creative, and as a frontman, he's creative frontman too. He's always moving around. You know, he's almost in the vein of like a Mick Jagger type, which is someone I don't think a lot of people would put him together like with, but he reminds me of him a little bit. The way he always tries to keep doing something. It's not often where he's just standing still, you know. I'm not blocking you. Those guys are blocking you. Deal with them. Now, he'd rather yell at me, though. Yeah, people get upset with me. They wouldn't get upset with certain kinds of people. You know, stop whining. But, yeah, he's really underrated. And he sounds great on this. They all do. I'm very encouraged by this, and I like the idea. It's just that I think my reaction to Dance Macabre had a lot to do with the mood I was in, because I was researching some really dark stuff at the time, which is, you know, kind of what I'm always doing. Also, the Maui thing was going on, and they came out with just this very evil sounding number with those keyboards, man, those really low frequency keyboards, and then, you know, like I said, the most evil thing they could do, let Charlie rap on top of it. It's just kind of like it sounds like a Disney villains kind of theme or something. It was goofy, but I think the chorus is good for Dance Macabre. It's catchy. And I do like the idea of the Halloween album. It's just that it wasn't what I was expecting. It wasn't what they were talking about. It was just kind of sprung on us, you know. all this Halloween stuff is new. And I know it's because they did that show. Like a few people in the comments like, no, they did a Halloween show. It's like, no, yeah, I know that, but the whole idea of this album originally, I didn't like. As far as I know, they didn't have an album planned. Like, they weren't thinking of recording an album. And after the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Andy announced he had the cancer, that's when they said, okay, we got to do an album. We're going to do an album with Andy. You know, they thought they had limited amount of time, right? That guy looked like he just landed a plane. But, yeah, so it was like, well, you know, Andy's in the condition Andy's in. Let's do an album with them while we can. And they put a hard release date on it. I'm not going to repeat everything I did in the Dance Macabre video, but basically, it seemed like this project was put together for Andy. It was a reunion album with Andy. That's just what they talked about. That's what it was, the press release was. Now, at this point, it's a Halloween album. And it has some contributions from past members, including Andy Taylor. It's like, well, that's a big difference. So something happened. Maybe they once he found out he was going to live, it changed things. Or maybe same old problems behind the scenes. And when they found out he was going to live, they're like, well, we're not dealing with this fucker. I don't know. But something happened. Something happened. I don't know what the story is. I don't know if we'll ever get it. But, yeah, this was a hard shift. So the original idea was, yeah, we're going to do some new songs and we're going to do some covers, you know, and it made it sound like it was going to be like covers they like or they played together as a band, or maybe songs they used to do, or songs they all decide on. It was an Andy sort of eccentric album. Like, that's the reason why they were doing this thing. So now I think they had this situation where they're in the studio or whatever, or they had this time booked, or they made all their plans. And bands like this that have a lot of money behind them, it's like a business. It's like a company. It's like fucking Target or something. It's like, you can't just say all right, we're doing this week and then change your mind the next. Things get put in motion where, you know, people's livelihoods rely on your decisions. Okay, we booked this, we have this studio, we need this art done. They hire people to get all this shit moving. So the train had left the station, and somewhere in, I don't know, May, June, July, there was a bit of a quiet time where we didn't hear a lot, and then we started hearing about it again. That's when it was like the Halloween thing. And it just felt weird to me. So that kind of none of it's their fault. Like, I'm not blaming them. It's all like a me thing. Like, the kind of tune that it was, combined with the what's the deal with this album and all that kind of stuff, just kind of caught me off guard. And again, Charlie Rappy, come on. I love him too. You know, you know, when you criticize them, people get upset, and then they start talking about what year they started listening to them. It's like, yeah, I've been a fan since 1982 myself. I was there during Liberty, midnight release at Tower Records. I hate when people do that. Like, well, I think this. It's like it's not, your opinion isn't better than anyone else's. If someone started listening to them last week, they're a fan too, and they can have their own opinion. These guys are dangerous. All right, but I got to go home too. So, and yeah. I don't think anyone should gatekeep bands anyway, because we're all new to something at one point. But yeah, I understand the fans of this band are extra passionate because of the fact that they had a lot of down years and people stuck with them. They got to a level like around Medazzaland where they were like a cult kind of band, but they could still play. They could still play good-sized venues, you know, not as big as they're doing now, but their shows always did well. I mean, I don't remember them having to cancel a tour for low ticket sales. I think they anticipated that around the time of Liberty, and that's why they didn't tour. But it's almost like a Rush situation or Star Trek situation. You know, they got that core, and they're always going to come up for them. And now, within the past couple of years, I think they've ascended to another level. They're looked at now like as a legacy band, like a heritage band. Like the thing with them, like they were always trying to change to fit in with whatever was happening at the time. I don't feel like they have to do that now because they're not competing with anyone. Once you get to a certain stage, and they're at that stage now, I don't think they have to compete with what's current in the charts, even though, you know, some of them still do. It's more like they're their own thing, you know what I mean? And they don't need to try to sound like anybody else or do anything else. So they're in a good spot. They're probably the most popular now than they've ever been. I mean, even at the height of mania in the 80s, I think they're, you know, with the internet and stuff, they have more of a global reach, and they have more people know who they are, I would say. Back in the 80s, even when they were at that huge mania point, it was very much just a youth thing, like young people, you know, mainly girls because of the reasons that we discussed here earlier. But now it's like more people, you know, just know them as a rock band. And you hear a lot less of the kind of stuff you used to hear as far as criticism goes, you know. But anyway, not to belabor the point, but I like the new song. It's good. It gives me hope for the rest of it, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how the rest of it turns out. This album, the way they did it, it's smart, you know, because it's not a real studio album. It's like a sort of a compilation, re-recordings with some new things. So it can't be compared one-to-one to Future Past, which was a success all around, like critically and commercially too, and in the charts and stuff. And it was a big one for them. So this release doesn't have to go with a one-to-one comparison. It's like, this is just a special album. This is something we're just doing as a theme album, whatever. But yeah, I really would like to know the story of what happened behind the scenes. And, you know, we might get it. But yeah, I know that it seems like they're downplaying. Or not downplaying, just not talking about. You know, Andy's doing his own thing with his album, which is incredible. That's the album of the year. Maybe the album of the last couple of years. It's so good, it's unbelievable. I didn't think... I always liked him, you know, and I liked his solo albums, the few things he did solo and Power Station, but this album's just incredible. It's incredible. Like, I have to kind of... I've been limiting my listening time to it because I don't want to burn out on it, but when I put it on, man, I listened to the whole thing through, and it's so good. It's very much like a theme album or a concept album. Lyrically, it chronicles what a lot of us went through. You know, this awakening to spirituality and understanding that there's some kind of struggle going on here that people can't see. You know, yeah. If you haven't heard it yet, that thing is amazing. That album's a real good one. You know, I haven't been into an album like this in a long time, you know, where every song is great, every song fits perfectly, vocals are incredible, songwriting is great. I would have liked for him to do more of that higher Bowie voice. In the first song, Man's a Wolf to Man, he does this like this thing, this Bowie kind of high, it's not a lyric, but, and I would like to hear him go more into that a little bit more. But maybe on the next one, because he's talking about already doing the next one, because this one got a lot of attention. I don't know how it's doing chart-wise. I think it's doing okay in different parts of the world. It certainly deserves to. It's really good. But they're not really talking too much about him, and he's not talking too much about them. He was talked about how it would be good if they could do a tour for the feds, just playing songs off the first two albums, which would be awesome. They would never do that because they're hyper focused on wanting to be current and all that stuff. So it would never happen, but it's a great idea. It's good that Warren's working on this new one too. It's almost like, I don't want to speculate, on what happened behind the scenes. But it's just kind of weird. You know, now it's like, now Warren's here? Why is Warren here? It's like, well, Niall's here? That's good. Niall, to me, he's the sixth member. You know, he's always kind of, it's Duran's his band too, in a way. I kind of always felt that way. And the girl from Mainskin, the one that's always getting naked, it's like, okay. I don't know, it's just weird. I don't know what the whole story is. But yeah, looking forward to that. Hopefully it's good. Black Moonlight's good. Everything's good. In the Supermoon Hangover today, when it came out this morning, and it's like 7 o'clock now, it came out at like 6 o'clock to walk near to work. And the moon was like right there. Right there, right in the sky. Big harvest moon. It's the last supermoon of the year. You know what? So that means there's a new Peter Gabriel song out. He's been going on about doing the review for the last one. I keep telling him I'm going to do it. So I guess I'll do both of them together. I was trying to get the rain or shine metaphor, but couldn't think of one quick enough. It's early in the morning. The articulation machine isn't on full power. Don't blame the teacher. Blame the school.